key issues that are hurting our community right now. Oh, please make sure your mics are on.
Hello? Oh, sorry. I know, at least speaking from the entertainment industry point of view, I think one of the obstacles is that there are very, very few Asian American female role models, at least senior level executives. Especially, yeah, female ones. And I think it's really hard for me growing up in this industry for the past almost 15 years to not really have anybody to look up to. Was really challenging, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to work in diversity, was so that I can see more faces like mine at the senior level executives. I think a lot of the Asian Americans that I've seen within TV have been more mid-level, and I think it's just the majority of the industry are white males. So I think not having anyone to represent you and advocate for you and your growth is really hard. We don't really have any sponsors. I wish I had one, but there isn't anyone that I can really look up to. So I think that's one challenge.
I'll add to that. In the business world, and it's not just in TV. I mean, in corporate America, you see a lot of lower level of mid-managers who are Asian Americans and Asian American females. But at the very senior levels, you don't see representation. So I would say to the question that you just asked, it's all of the above, our challenges. But I'll point out two in particular that impact Asian Americans and women, Asian American women. And those are executive presence and sponsorship. I already talked about sponsorship, so I'll just cover executive presence. Asian Americans are seen as high achievers, as well as women, whether they be Asian Americans or not. We're very high achievers, we're reliable, we're dependable, we get the job done. People are dependent upon us. But we're not seen as leaders. And why is that? Well, it could be many reasons, right? Some of the reasons that you just mentioned. So I think what we need to do is step more into leadership. We need to take more risk, take more chances to speak in public, no matter, even if you're really nervous about it. You just have to get out there and do it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable that you get. And you become visible, become more visible. So then, because that's what leadership looks like. You're out there, you're showing up, you care, and you can speak with gravitas, calm under fire. So I think those are the skills that we need to develop, whether it be in corporate America or in TV, anywhere else if we want to advance up to the next level.
And at dinner last night, I mean, you were one of the ones who felt that your gender and ethnicity did not limit you. And I think that's good for the audience to know. So can you talk about that in the illustration world?
Yeah, it's very odd with them. It's not odd, I guess it makes sense. But I think in every other field, and almost every other field, when you're presented, your visual, your face comes first before you practically even speak. And before anyone, they look at you and they immediately make an assumption about who you are. The illustration world is not like that. The literary world is not like that. You were never represented. You're rarely ever seen to your editors. In fact, half of my editors thought that I was a man before they ever met me because they couldn't tell by my name. So I found that the literary world, the art world, is almost colorblind, gender blind in that sense. That's not to say that there aren't walls to be had. I can't say that I personally felt them, and I'm sure they do exist. But there's a nice leveling of the playing field because you are truly judged based on what you can do before you're ever presented to anyone. And it makes me think, like, if all of these women could just do that, if we could just stack up our talents and abilities before anyone were ever to see your face, that would be the level playing field right there. But as an artist, I'm grateful for the fact that I think I've been able to get as far as I am because I am just able to present myself as my work. I'm judged for my work before anything else, and I wish anyone else could have that.
I think it's important to present all the different variety of careers to know what are kind of the barriers to entry if you're considering something like this. For Kim, on the other hand, in a very male-dominated world, why don't you explain what you face?
So what Min's talking about, I think, is definitely how the external, faces you. I think for me, it's how do I view myself. I mean, I work in the gaming industry, which is predominantly male. Most of the players or people who play video games are mostly male as well.
And so I don't think I've faced any challenges being Asian American in my field, and if I have, I don't notice it. But it's definitely being female. It's a huge challenge because people don't just assume that you don't have the experience or knowledge, or you don't know what you're talking about. And I think for me, in order to, I agree with Grace as well, there's just not enough role models and enough people who can inspire you to show you how you can be different. And so for me, I focus more on not focusing on what the role should be. Like from within, you kind of grow up seeing that a woman should be the mother of the household, they should be taking care of kids, and whatever stereotype or whatever gender roles that you have to put that all aside. And especially for me, when I'm working in the gaming industry, I just had to see myself just like everyone else. And then that will allow me not to limit myself. Because I think sometimes people end up limiting themselves because they think that's the role that they have to do. And at the end of the day, you have to go against the grain. You've got to be different than everybody else.
Using the name Good Club.
And I think that's how I was able to succeed. And it's not to say that I didn't face a lot of challenges being female. You're like a part of a lot of the gossip sometimes, or sometimes people question about how you got promoted, or what did you do differently, or is it because of your looks? And so you just have to toss that aside and continue focusing on your work and proving people wrong. And at the end of the day, now I've been at Blizzard for 8 years now, and I think that anybody that has worked with me there does not even question one bit my ability to do what I do and my skill set. Like I'm very well respected at my company, and I think it's because through time I just kept trying to prove people wrong.
I mean, it's so funny that sometimes our gender and ethnicity is something that so stuck in the top of our head, and sometimes you just kind of have to throw it away, right?
Right.
But when do you know when to throw it away is the question. When do you leverage it for an advantage, and when do you say, this is not going to limit me? And Joel, I think we talked about this a little bit with your coverage in Asia being different versus your coverage here, stateside.
This is a really tough topic because I can speak to the fact that, for example, when I was at NPR in DC, there was a position in Afghanistan that opened up for a producer. And I started at Morning Edition, producing for Bob Edwards, and I knew that my skills as a producer was top-notch, and that you could drop me into any country, and I could, help. I could produce something, pull something together that would just be, above average. But the person that got the job was a man, and a very good guy, a good producer, great. But I really felt like, in Afghanistan, my editor decided that someone like me would not have represented NPR in the best way possible. And it's a tough task because, would they prefer a small little Asian girl like me to deal with, the locals, or would they prefer a man who was much bulkier or who was a bit different? And so sometimes when those issues come up, you have to be able to say, do you continue in the game? Do you complain? What do you do with those kinds of situations? And the best that I can say is that you keep at it, you don't give up, you continue to pursue what you know to be right for yourself, and to keep telling the stories in whatever path that you choose to tell it, whether it is whether you're on TV or elsewhere. For myself, I was always told that I had to be the next Connie Chung, that I had to be the next Asian American television personality to be the symbol for so many Asian Americans. And for me, that was not going to be my path. My path was always going to be, you be behind the scenes. Be someone that people can turn to, because in a lot of ways, being behind the scenes, you actually have much more control, and you're much more of a manager, and you have more influence than the person who's actually on television. And I think people forget that. People forget that we're the ones who are actually telling them what to say. And that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind is we have very influential roles, even if we're not visible, even if we're not, in public. People don't know what I look like, but if they listen to public radio, they'll remember, Wahui, Sai Kao Tao. They won't remember, other things, but they'll be like, oh, I think I've heard some of her reports, and I think people will say randomly where I go, I remember this story about, and it was always about a character or a quote that someone said. It was never about, oh, that dress that you wore, or your hair was this way. It was always about the content, and that to me, time and time again, is what I turn to inspire me to remember that someone remembered what I said, not what I looked like. And so, being a female, being in public radio, being from a particular refugee background, these are all the things that, force me to just keep at it. And if I give up, then, a lot of people out there will say, you know what, I can't do it. And I want people to know that you can do it. It's hard, but you can do it.
And I think it's interesting that each of you had a different challenge that you faced, and you overcame it in a very unique way. Would you share some of those?
One of the things about being Asian and a female is we're kind of stereotyped as being very quiet and obedient and doing things. And I knew that about myself. And I did get some feedback early in my career that I needed to speak up more. And so at some point, I decided I really needed to get those skills. And so after a really good year, I asked if I could go on this negotiation training course. That was a week. And I got it. But that changed the whole way that I started to interact when I got back. Because now that's what really helped me, because I was, those bamboo walls are those things that we ourselves do. And by recognizing something that I thought I really needed, that helped me more than I think anything else, was just the ability to say, this is what I want and why, and to be able to ask for what I want.
So on that note, I want to transition to the next phase of this is, identifying the issue is a very important part, just giving voice to what are the problems that limit us today. But then here's the advice part, the prescriptive part maybe, from each of you to kind of give us your take on, and I know some of you are very unaccepting of your title as a groundbreaker because you're still doing it. And I think that just speaks to how humble you are, but we do feel that you are groundbreakers. So what would your advice be to others who are seeking this path? How can you overcome it? What would your advice be?
What my advice would be,
How can they change the game for themselves and play to win it?
that's a tough one as well, because I think there's so many different angles and many different ways that you can answer that question. I will kind of touch base a little bit on the last topic on the path, and I think you have Cynthia was talking about she recognized that she was more shy and more quiet. I think I grew up. Maybe I'm different. I grew up with a brother, and so I was very competitive with my brother, and I always wanted to be just like him. And so it goes back to how I view myself, and I never really saw myself as different. And I think even growing up, I never saw myself as, even though I knew I was Asian, I never saw myself as Asian around other kids. I just saw myself the way I saw everyone else. So with my brother, I always saw myself as a boy. Whatever he could do, I could do. And in school, whatever my friends, whether they're white or whatever ethnicity they are, whatever they did, I can do. I just wanted to be the same as everyone else. And so I think I kind of still carry that in going forward as just focus on you and don't limit yourself. I think at the end of the day, don't think that you can't do something because of who you are. Don't think that you can't do something because you're a woman or because you're an Asian American or whatever it is. And so that's one area where I can answer that question. The other way I answer that question is truly trying to figure out what you're passionate about. And I think, we hear a lot about passion, and passion, I believe, really comes from your heart. It doesn't come from your head. When you think too much about what it is that you should be doing, or you think about what it is that you're passionate about, you're really not living what you're passionate about. It comes from your heart, and really, it's all about engagement. Just do what it is that you love to do. Do whatever it is that you think is fun. And don't think about don't think about what it is that you should be doing. Just do it. And that's what I did. I never really thought I would be in the video game industry industry. I did what my mom wanted me to do. I majored in engineering. I was a software engineer. You know, did things that made my family proud, made money, all of this stuff. But it wasn't really what was coming from my heart. My hobby was what I was doing. And I never did my hobby thinking that it would lead to a career in video games and then moving up that chain and ladder in video games. Or I never knew that I would be a leader. I just led because I wanted to. And I don't know how to really give that advice other than just focus on the things that you like to do and just do it.
I have to say, I think for me, I'm not sure if this is a lesson, but I think it's important for all of us to not isolate ourselves. We tend to just stay in comfort zones, whether it's just in our own little neighborhoods or our own cities. I've met so many people who've never left, you know, a certain place and who hasn't stepped outside of what they're comfortable with. And when you begin to do that, when you attend events that you don't know anything about, or when you get beyond just your ethnicity, your particular group, you really do start to understand that your culture, where you come from, has a lot in common with other groups and other people and other issues and other matters. And you know, I grew up extremely afraid of a lot of things, of people, of white people. And I say that very frankly because, you know, I grew up in a really shamanistic household where I wasn't allowed to like hit even a table or walls, or I couldn't just play like a normal kid. I was very much like, you know, my mother was always like, be careful because I'm gonna have to, you know, call a shaman and do another spirit ceremony for you. And, you know, everything was very, very scary for me. Plus, you know, when your parents don't speak the language, you know, you get very lost in the world and you get very scared and you don't want to go out there and see what other people are like. And it's like oh no, that's, you know, only black people go over there. And it's like, okay, but what's wrong with that? You know, like, it's, part of it is that if you get too focused on just your community, you forget how to, you know, make bridges to other people, which can empower you. And for me, you know, I didn't, NPR never said, Wally, go to Asia and be a foreign correspondent. One day, a freelancer in Bangkok said, oh, I'm leaving, my husband's gonna do this and that. And I basically said, wow, well, I'm not gonna wait until NPR decides that Southeast Asia is important. I'm just gonna go out there. And I jumped ship, quit my, you know, job, full-time, you know, 401k, the works. I was like, oh my God, my salary, my benefits. And you go out there and you just wing it. And you are a scared duckling and you're swimming with everybody else, and, you know, BBC's here, ABC's here, all these people are there. You just stand up and keep going. And so that was one way that I basically said, I'm not going to be afraid. I have to just throw myself in the game in order to be counted. And again, it's kind of what my message was before. You know, you really do need to branch beyond what you're comfortable with. You've got to shake hands with someone that you're not familiar with. But, you know, obviously not in a condescending way. Because I do get the, oh, you speak English so well, still. And so, you know, I always have to laugh and just, you know, play with that, because it's hard, because people do kind of connect you with, you know, the local Chinese delivery person who doesn't speak English well. You know, the person who has a really thick accent somewhere. You know, the first immigrants, or, you know, the people who are still just arriving. And the fact is that Asian Americans have been here for so long that people shouldn't be looking at us like we're outsiders, because, you know, we're not.
I used to teach, and there's nothing more difficult than facing like a room of students, and all of them are sort of expectantly looking at you, and you want to tell them, oh, you'll all succeed. But I used to scare off my students on the first day, and I'd say, maybe 3 of you will become freelance artists. And I'm not saying that because you don't all have the ability, I'm just saying that only 3 of you will do it. And I would say to each one of them, no matter how talented you are, like, some of you will get from point A to point Z in 2 steps. and it'll be easy for you. And good luck for you, congratulations. Some of you will be from point A to point Z, and it's going to take 112 steps, and it's going to take you 15 years to get there. But if you want it, it's there. And the only thing stopping you is your desire and your determination to get there. And of course, figuring out what the steps are in between. And that's really hard when you're facing the students and you see some of them and you know immediately the ones that become crestfallen are the ones that are not going to make it. Because they've already accepted, oh, it's not going to happen for me. And the ones that suddenly sit up taller in their chair and get, well, I'm going to be that one, you're kind of like, okay, I'll see, I don't care how talented you are, I'll see you in 5 years. And I would, every time the class would be over at the end of the semester, I'd stand up and say, okay, so those of you guys are going to make it, I'm your competition, in 3 years. So keep that in mind. So whether or not I was telling them, pay attention to me, or whether it was really just, stay real about what it is that you're doing, like understand, have a plan. I mean, when I left, I had a plan, and having that plan is very, very helpful, I would say. Like understanding exactly what you're going to do, figure out your steps to A to Z. So.
And I think one key point, I want to finish up on this and then go to our fun questions. We talked about last night, what is the formula? And I think we kind of came up with some common factors, which was passion, which we've talked about, determination, and then talent. Because you have to be good at it. And like we talked about a girl that she mentored over and over that was so passionate and so wanted it, she just wasn't good enough. And how do you handle that? You have to have a combination of a lot of things. And the fourth, the X factor, there's the X factor, and then there's luck. So there's a lot of things that I think can play into a personal and individual success. So I want to end the panel part on something that's become a tradition. If you're familiar with the show Inside the Actor's Studio, he always asks his guests 10 questions. And we're going to go in round robin style, starting with Kim. And I'm going to ask you one question, and you just answer as quick as you can the first thing that comes to your mind. This is just a fun way for you to know that. All right, so the first question is, what is your favorite word? Don't overthink it.
What if it's a curse word?
That's one of the questions. Your most or anyone?
No, and my favorite word usually is just hi. I love to say hi to everybody. Every time I say hi every day to everybody I come into work with, face with, so I'm gonna say hi.
Grace?
Faith, only I think it's the way it sounds is really pretty, and I just believe in faith.
My favorite word is yowza.
Hope. Okay. It's not because I am this, but I just love the way it sounds. Melancholy. This is really great.
I like tenacity.
Good word. Okay, what's your least favorite word?
Do I always have to start? Everyone gets to think about what the word is. It's got to be like,
We'll start with you, Cynthia. What's your least favorite word?
See how hard it is when you have to go first? Like, everyone has to think about their answer.
You're a groundbreaker. You go first.
my least favorite word is blah, 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 blah.
Diaper. It's a no-brainer.
Misogyny?
Misogyny?
Misogyny.
Oh, misogyny. I was like, misogyny?
It's 2 words, but giving up.
Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, actually, this one I thought of pretty quickly. I don't know who came up with it, but I really don't like the word totes. Like, it's supposed to be short for totally, but when I first heard it, I'm like, totes, I just don't like that word. Totes.
For me, it's not really a word, it's a sound. I don't know if you're going to ask that later, but I hate the sound of sirens. Like ambulance sirens. Oh, sorry.
Word do you think?
Word. Cackle. I just don't like the way it sounds, like that.
All right, Kim, we just got to start with you, okay? What turns you on? Mom, don't listen.
No, what turns me on? Definitely probably related to esports, just cheering and people being excited and people cheering. I don't know, that really gets me geeked out. I really like it when people are really into something, whether they're cheering for a football game or whatever it is.
Grace?
I like rain.
Rain turns you on, okay.
I have to say, humility. Like when I meet someone who's just very low, just very humble, it just really makes me, like, it draws me and it really brings me to listen more carefully and to really just pay attention. And in fact, most of the people that I remember in interviews that I've done have been, the people who are just the most humble.
Silence.
Silence? Wonderful voice. Louis?
Talent. Like, I'm really, really attracted to talent.
My husband's an artist.
And easy chocolate cake.
Okay, so what profession, other than yours, would you like to attempt?
Probably music. I used to want to be a musician.
Chef. I love to cook.
Oh my gosh. I always wanted to be a dolphin announcer. I used to think that was the coolest job in the universe at SeaWorld, where you'd go and you'd be like, welcome to SeaWorld! Used to.
Like just this morning.
Oh my God.
Come back to me. A journalist. What's one journalist?
In my third act, I'm really thinking about doing something with Asian art.
Oh. Amy. Here. Back to you.
An engineer?
No,
I did study engineering, but
So the follow-up of that question is, what profession would you not want to ever do?
Oh, man. I think probably a doctor. I don't know, because I don't know that I would be able to deal with cutting people up and stuff like that.
Same here, doctor, anything that has to do with needles. Yeah.
I would hate to be a butcher. I just can't.
Being here.
car salesperson.
No offense, anyone.
A corporate lawyer.
Coroner. A coroner. So he always ends with this one. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome. Hello, welcome.
I would want her to say you did good.
You're gonna have to pass on me. I don't know what God would say to me.
So this is God? Okay. You can say, so no one's ever done a really good portrait of me. Do you take commissions?
They love it.
Who else did you bring?
You can do it. I'm sorry. My mother taught me that in the spirit world, there's just so much energy everywhere in the universe, and I just don't know what. I would be speechless. I wouldn't know what to say. I would just be like,
I'm here?
yeah, something to that effect. Did I really land here?
So in ATG tradition, we always start our board retreats with a game. It's called Two Truths and One Lie. Are any of you familiar with this? So I asked the ladies last night to prepare 2 things that are true and 1 thing that's a lie to say out loud. But they're not going to tell you here in this format what's true and what's false. You're going to have to meet them in the round tables to find out. To encourage you to go meet them one-on-one. So Kim,
Can we start with, I didn't prepare. Can we start with Cynthia?
you ready?
Sure. So
2 truths and 1 lie.
I'm a skier, I'm a foodie, and I'm an only child.
I
tattoo of a lotus on my back. I've never been trampled by a wild elephant. I've been the subject of conversation at a Nobel Peace Prize convention.
I flunked third grade. I applied to 10 universities and applied to one job.
I'm a Capricorn. I have SAT score of 600, and I went to Yale.
I was a dance teacher in my 20s. I'm fluent in Spanish, and I've seen every episode of Walking Dead.
I used to be a singer. I've also been a professional gamer. I competed in an e-sport tournament. And I am a really great cook.
So you're not revealing. That is the mystery. You have to eat them each one-on-one, find out the truth. And right now, we want to all conclude this portion and thank you for being inspirations to us all. We're going to give each of you a certificate.